We're on. Good morning.
Good morning,
Or afternoon. Well, it's morning for us.
whatever
After-
time you're listening.
yes. I don't know when you're listening. I'm not your boss.
I don't know why you're listening, but hey, I'm not your dad, so.
Yes. If you are, welcome to a special episode where I honestly don't even know how to start with this episode.
I I want to say we're continuing the Christmas movie discussion.
Y- y- I guess.
It's
Okay.
tenuous, but
Yep. Okay, I've got a good place to start. Let's start with some content warnings for this episode.
yes, let's. Yes.
The title and the episode description, which I will write, we're discussing the Terrifier franchise today.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what the Terrifier franchise is, you know what you're in for. If you don't know what the Terrifier franchise is, pause this, quickly Google it, and if it's not for you, feel free to join us next episode.
Just ask Gemini or ChatGPT just to give you a quick insight into what you might expect in one of these films. That is a good pre-warning because we don't need complaints about the content.
Yeah, but
You've been warned.
there will probably be discussions of violence, gore. Oh, what
So
else?
much gore.
There's going to be some swearing, I'm sure.
Mm.
If you're sensitive to discussions about demonic things, anything like that, this is your warning. Even if you don't want to listen, just turn the volume down so we still get the analytics of the play. But feel free to go and do something more wholesome.
And it will be spoilerific.
Absolutely,
So
we are spoiling it all.
If you haven't seen all three, be warned, we are going to discuss all three in detail, including, I would imagine, some of the major plot points of the third film.
Yes. So take this as your warning. You've been warned. All right, here we go. Let's get into this. Merry Christmas, everyone.
I maintain it continues our Christmas movie episode as the third Terrifier film is set at Christmas and it plays a heavy part in the movie itself. So,
And if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then Terrifier 3 is a Christmas movie.
released at Halloween though.
Yeah,
Or just before Halloween.
that seemed like a misstep.
Oh yeah, I wonder.
Then again, it is a horror movie, and they do traditionally release at Halloween.
That is true.
Except Hocus Pocus, which I think released in June or July.
I feel like that ruined its
It really did.
its income. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Mm.
Anyway,
Right.
I don't know where to begin with these movies. Like, they're definitely something.
I think maybe we should start by giving a quick rundown. For those who don't know, the Terrifier films follow, I'm going to say story, but I use the term loosely, of Art the Clown, a violent, maniacal, psychopathic killer clown.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Who very much delights in torturing, dismembering, eviscerating, causing great amounts of pain, in other words,
yes.
to his victims.
Yep, all of the above.
Yeah. And never says a word the whole time in all three films. Never utters a single phrase at all.
That's true. He barely even makes a sound. It's all
Does
just.
he even groan or grunt?
I don't think so.
And he gets beaten up a fair bit.
He's a mime.
He looks cross when that happens, though.
Yeah, he's not happy about it.
No. I still remember him giving the finger to one of his victims when she put a nail through his foot.
I
I think
mean,
it was in the first movie.
that's a fair reaction, to be honest. If someone did that.
I would probably be a little more reactive, but, he seemed comfortable with his reaction there.
Yes. Well, I guess that we're talking about, the genre here is slasher, at least in the first movie.
First movie, I would definitely call a slasher flick. It does very much, and we discussed this on our Winnie the Pooh episode of what a slasher entails. And I do think it follows the tropes of a standard slasher
Yes.
film.
Let's get this was it. Let's get this out of the way. This is a criticism I've seen of the franchise online, that it is just torture porn.
Mm,
And I guess by that I mean that it is just violent for violence sake.
yes.
And they do really push the limits of what is appropriate, even for a slasher film. Some of the things that happen in these movies could be seen as if not crossing a line, like getting as close to that line as possible.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think to determine that they're torture porn, I feel like the violence has to be played out in a realistic way, and it has to be almost what's the word I'm looking for? This may sound weird to say, but it has to be almost erotic in nature.
Mm.
I think for it to be torture porn, people have to be obviously the person inciting the violence has to be getting off on it, which art does. I will admit,
I was about to say,
very
art
much does.
Absolutely, he loves his work.
He does. He's the most joyous serial killer you'll ever see, apart from maybe Hannibal Lecter, who seems to also very much enjoy his work. But also, I think there has to be that serious undertone of it. When it's pornographic, it's done for the audience's almost perverse, instinctual nature. I think, and it's done in a serious way. It's not playing it up or anything like that.
Do you think for it to be called a torture porn movie, and I can't think of a movie specifically, but I know it was a big one, especially in the 70s. There were a lot of, I guess, I don't know if exploitation films is the right word, but definitely in the 70s when kind of censorship was relaxed a little bit, especially in the US, there were a lot of horror films that really pushed the envelope. I think, what's his name? Dario Argento, if I'm saying that right, made a lot of those movies that really pushed the limits of what a horror film could be. And the Italian exploitation horror films of the 70s are renowned for that kind of stuff.
Was he responsible for Cannibal Holocaust?
No, that was someone else.
It was an Italian film, though,
yes,
I believe.
And he was accused of actually murdering people.
Yeah, so I understand that the main cast, the girl from the film, actually had to show up in court and go, "No, I'm actually alive. It's fine."
Yeah.
They did. They pushed the boundaries a lot, and yeah, the Italian films. I haven't seen a lot of the Italian horror from that era.
Antonio Climati directed Cannibal Holocaust.
But then there are ones like, I guess, the original The Hills Have Eyes, which I think was early 80s. I Spit on Your Grave was another one that really pushed the boundaries of...
Oh, no, sorry. My mistake. He made Cannibal Holocaust 2. I had no idea there was a Cannibal Holocaust 2.
Doesn't feel like a film that needs a sequel.
No, Ruggero Deodato directed Cannibal Holocaust in 1980, and I apologize for probably butchering the pronunciation of his name.
Fair enough. But things like I Spit on Your Grave was never done for what you would call enjoyment. So for those of you who don't know, I Spit on Your Grave is a film about a woman who is brutally raped, and not just once, but multiple times over. In fact, the first, possibly third of the film is just shot after shot after shot of her being raped by these men. And then the second third of the film is kind of her, I guess, recovering, at least physically, from that ordeal. And then the final third of the film is her taking out vengeance on these men. And at no point does the film spare the audience from what is happening. Like, well, in horror film tropes where they imply the violence or what have you, we don't actually see it. We're not spared that. We see everything.
Sounds very similar, like Last House on the Left. as
I
well.
haven't seen it, but I understand. Yeah, Wes Craven very much pushed the boundaries of acceptability in the 80s.
I haven't seen the original. I've seen the remake. They made a
Right.
remake many years ago, which wasn't bad. I hear it's not as good as the original, but the remake does one thing that I loved, which is a trope in horror films that I hate, but it does it great because it's a very similar premise where a group of people come across a woman that's a daughter of this family. They're on vacation and they assault her and they, do a lot of nasty
Mm.
things to her. I think the remake tones it down a little bit to what the original had. But then, like that, the second half of the film is essentially the family taking revenge on the people that did it.
Mm.
But the father in that film does the best thing is that he attacks this person and this person is supposedly dead. And he actually goes back and checks that they're dead. It's always a
He
trope
double
that
taps.
yes, he double taps, kills this guy, goes, leaves like, nope, I'm going to go back and double check this guy's actually dead. Like, thank you. So many horror films would end so much sooner if they'd just checked the person's actually dead before leaving.
Yep.
Anyway, but do you think the fact it doesn't shy away from it makes that third act revenge more satisfying?
Look, I don't tend to watch a lot of those types of films, which is why I was surprised that I really enjoyed the Terrifier franchise. But I think I Spit on Your Grave, for example, is one of the few that I have seen, and it was very overt, very graphic.
Mm,
But yes, I think showing everything that happens from, the first minute to the final minute, whether you like it or not, I think it is necessary in that you understand what I think if they pulled away, you don't understand to the same degree why this third act is happening.
mm,
And so I think that is actually really necessary in a lot of ways. And maybe that's torture porn. I don't know. But it was necessary.
yeah,
I
I
think the
think
first Saw movie, um, the violence that we see in that and the gore that we see in that is a necessary thing. We need to see the full effect of what it is Jigsaw's trying to do. I haven't
yes,
seen the sequel, so I can't talk, but I know they get their
I
criticisms of it.
yeah, I've seen them. I think we've said before that those Saw movies are like my horror comfort films.
Yeah.
We should sit down and watch them one day.
Hmm.
At least
One
the
right
first
through to the end,
at least the first 3 or 4
perhaps.
and 11.
And
Oh
11.
wait, 10. Sorry, 11 is coming out next year. I think. Look, I think Saw 10 surprised everyone with how legitimately like good of a film it actually was.
Hmm.
Anyway, but yeah, there has definitely been that criticism labeled at the Saw franchise, and especially in some of the later movies. I mean, for what plot the Saw movies do have, there is an argument to be made that towards the end of the franchise, they were just going gore for gore's sake, because
Yeah.
it as wrong as Jigsaw's message is, because it bugs me when I've seen online people say, "Oh, Jigsaw is actually right. He's doing a not a quote unquote good thing, but they understand him." Like, no, Jigsaw's wrong. He's doing this to make a point, but his point is wrong. And throughout the series, you see how his influence, his original message is twisted, and how wrong it actually is. But it did seem in the later movies they moved away from what is Jigsaw trying to do and more just let's put people in a bad situation and make them suffer.
Mm.
Like there's absolutely that criticism towards the later movies. But I guess if we're looking at Terrifier, I think there's definitely a conversation to be had of is it torture porn, and I think it burrows down the fact of do you enjoy these movies to begin with?
Yeah.
If we had sat down with Eloise and watched the Terrifier trilogy, she would definitely come out of it not enjoying that at all.
I'm not sure. And now it's been maybe a year or so since I watched the first movie, but I vaguely remember the scene where the two girls are sitting in the car before anything really happens. And Art appears quite menacing in his way. And I'm not 100% sure Eloise would have made it past that scene.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm trying to remember. It's been a little bit since I've seen the first one, but I think even from the get-go, it doesn't shy away from like what this movie's going to be.
No,
Like
I don't think it does.
I apologize to anyone out there. There's some yard work going on outside. I apologize if anyone can hear that.
It's fine.
We're recording at 11 o'clock on a Monday during the Christmas holiday period, by the way. So
yeah, from memory, it starts at the end where they're interviewing the surviving woman and what art has done to her face.
Yes.
And what she then does to the co-host who makes fun of how she looks. And so, yeah, I think right from the start, you kind of you get an idea of how this film is going to go.
Yeah, still doesn't make it pleasant.
No, it's not a pleasant film. No.
This is not one to see on a first date.
Not unless you're very, very sure of your date.
Yeah. Oh, look, there are people out there that I'm sure would love that as a first date film.
I remember. Well, I'm sure there are. I remember Adrian, and he might write in and complain about me sharing this. I don't know, but I remember he went on a first date with a girl, and he took her to see Secret Window. Now, to be fair,
yep,
his date, massive Johnny Depp fan, absolutely insane about Johnny Depp, loved him. And so, you think, scary-ish movie. He's read the book. He knew what was going to happen. And if you haven't seen Secret Window, it's not really what you would call a nasty horror film. It's more of a slow burn tension film.
It's a psychological horror.
Yeah. Now, in the book, the character has a cat. And a very unpleasant thing happens to the cat. And Adrian forgot about that. And in the film, I believe it's a dog instead. And he said the moment he saw the dog, his heart kind of dropped because he knew exactly what that dog was going to be for. And
he knew there would be no second date.
Well, no, he did get a second date.
Oh, good.
So that one kind of lucked out, but he knew it was coming, and wrong choice of first date film for, I think, that girl.
Yeah.
So, yeah, be very sure of your date if you're going to take them to a movie like
If you're going to take them to a Johnny Depp movie for a first date, try something like Chocolat. Might be more appropriate.
Even the original Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, yeah.
Fun.
That movie holds up. That first one.
Although, given how overtly sexual he looks in that film.
In Pirates of the Caribbean?
And Chocolat, maybe. Don't take it to that.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway. So, yeah, I think, because I'm kind of brushing over the first film, because I think the second and third films are a completely different level compared to the first one.
They are. They take it in a very different direction as well.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, the first one's a straight slasher flick. But the second two are much more supernatural, I suppose.
Yeah, because the first one, and I think I messaged you this. I don't know if you'd seen them before I did, or if I watched them before you.
You watched them all before me, yeah.
Okay, because I think I watched the first one around the time I think Terrifier 2 had come out, and everyone was saying how the director listened to the criticism and made active efforts to quote-unquote fix it. So a lot of the criticisms for the first one is there was one, I think, very minimal plot. It was just, here's a killer clown and he's picked these two women to target.
Yeah, that's
it. Hijinks ensue.
Yep.
It's a good movie. Like, I enjoyed it for what it was, but it is a very stock standard slasher flick.
Yes.
If you've seen anything like Halloween, Friday the 13th, anything like that, you know the tropes and you can kind of guess where the movie's going to go.
I will say the final girl was not who you expect to be.
Yes, that was a nice little twist. But I think what made that movie stand out is Art the Clown and the performance of what's his name? David
Thornton.
Howard?
Yes.
I
Yes.
want
David
to
Thornton
say that.
Howard.
Yeah,
Yes. David Howard Thornton, sorry.
David Howard Thornton, thank you.
Yeah.
I think the performance of David Howard Thornton really elevated it. Like, he made Art the Clown really memorable.
He did.
Because he wasn't like a scary clown. He was actually a fun clown that just happened to kill people.
I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean. Like in the movie It, obviously you've got this interdimensional creature appearing human. You've got, I guess, John Wayne Gacy, who was just an evil son of a bitch and used the clown to get close to kids. Those kinds of things. But Art the clown part of him, I feel, is separate to the killer part of him almost, in that he is just a happy clown and who happens to kill people.
Yes,
like
exactly
said,
right.
Yeah.
And then, I got to the end. It was right up. And again, we're getting to spoilers, but they had, quote unquote, defeated Art, and he had died.
Yep.
And then he's in the morgue and suddenly wakes up.
Yes.
And kills the mortician and escapes. And I actually remember thinking at the time, going, what? Like, there was nothing in the movie at that point that had indicated that anything supernatural was going on.
No.
It was just a crazy guy in a clown suit murdering people.
Yes.
And I was there for it, but then that happened, and I'm like, oh, that's a bit... Like, I was taken aback by it. Because it just came out of nowhere. Like, yeah, like, I know it's a trope. Like, Michael Myers has come back from the death so many times.
It's the film that kind of started that trope, I think.
Yeah. I know with Jason in the Friday the 13th films, they really leaned into, like, he's supernatural essentially by the end. He is a supernatural killing being.
Yes, they did.
I mean, Freddy Krueger was always a supernatural thing, so that wasn't in question. But yeah, it threw me off a little bit right at the end, because it just kind of came out of nowhere that he suddenly resurrected. When he was clearly dead. Like, there was no if, buts, or maybes about it. He was dead.
Yeah. Yeah, he takes his lumps like a human.
Yes. And then I watched the second movie, and I was amazed at, one, how much better it was, and how much effort had been put into, again, like I said, the director and the creator, quote unquote, fixed it. And I think he did. Like, he actually added characters, and he added a lore around why he actually came back.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, one of the criticisms I hear of the second film is that it's overlong with too much story.
It definitely did feel long at some points, but I want to talk about that more when we get to Terrifier 3, because there's some stuff I want to say about it there.
But I would agree the way...
I just want to say, because Damien Leone is the creator, writer, and director of the Terrifier series. Just want to put his name out there.
Yes. And I got to say, hats off to him with the third film. He was approached by a lot of major film companies to produce that film. And because he wanted to stay true to what he'd created, and he's very close with David Howard Thornton now, and I suppose Lauren Lavera as well. And he wanted them to maintain control over their characters as well. So he actually turned down pretty much every major film company that wanted to produce that, so that they could bring across their vision.
I can respect that, because Terrifier 2, I think one, the fact that the Terrifier 1 got a sequel was a miracle. It's very rare that happens, and the fact it got a bigger budget than it did, because usually, okay, I will retract that. Horror movie sequels happen a lot, actually.
They
are very cheap to make. And if a movie even makes back its budget and gets a little bit of profit, you can guarantee a sequel is going to be greenlit. The fact this one was greenlit, got a bigger budget, and they let him, to quote Deadpool, they let him cook. And just gave him apparently like a lot of just creative freedom, really shone through, and I can respect him for turning down like the big budget studios to maintain what he wanted to do.
It would have been very tempting, but I guess we'll talk about this more when we get to the third film.
Yeah.
He said he showed a number of film studios the opening sequence, and he knew, well, as they read it, that there's no way they were going to let him make this movie. So he kept it small. But you can also tell the bigger budget and the more, like, I think Tom Savini's special effects crew actually came on board for this film, so you can tell the step up, I suppose, in those practical effects.
And I think the majority are practical effects.
Yes, most of them are. I think there was one CGI part in the second film, he said, and that cost more than.
Can't remember what it is.
No, I'm thinking of another film, but sorry, there's very few. As far as I know, there's very few CGI effects.
I want to say there are some bits that might just be polished with CGI, but I also might be thinking of another film as well.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to the nature of the film. Going back to the whole idea of, is this torture porn? And what comes to mind in the first film where he's sawing the girl in half vertically.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, one of his victims he ties upside down and proceeds to use, was it a hacksaw? I think
so. A rusty one, I'm pretty sure.
To saw her in half vertically, not horizontally, vertically. And you see him do it from start to finish.
Yeah.
It doesn't cut away.
And wasn't it in a interview, David Howard Thornton said, like, he thought this was just stage direction for him when he's playing the role, and the director was like, "Oh no, we're showing it."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's like, "Oh, okay."
I will say, just while on this trend, if you're a fan of the movies, go watch interviews with David Howard Thornton, because they're actually really fascinating.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, and he's really personable.
But you can just tell he's so passionate about it. It's so weird that, like, yep, this is my character and I really love this character. And it seems like he actually has a lot of input as to what happens with the character moving forward.
I hope, and I'm pretty sure he does, but I hope he gets a lot of improvisational reign when he's art in some of the shenanigans. Obviously, there's scripted kills and stuff.
Yes. But he did mention, and I think it's in Terrifier 2 when they're in the... what shop? It's really early. They're in a shop.
The costume shop?
Yes, the costume shop. Thank you.
I love that scene so much. That
scene is legitimately so funny.
It is. Yeah.
But I think it was in that scene he was saying that he did get a lot of free range to just improv. Yeah. And then it was up to the director to kind of direct him, go, "Oh, that was too much, pull it back," or "Let's give it a bit more." And they kind of had to find... I think they said they had hours of footage of just improving stuff, and then they went through and kind of picked. But he said the hardest thing for him in those scenes is he takes it too comedic. Like, it's meant to be funny, but it's not meant to be laugh out loud funny.
Yeah.
So there's that balance, because they have to keep art menacing. Like, there always has to be that subtext of this guy could snap at any moment and just massacre everyone in the room.
Which he did from memory. Well, at least the owner of the costume.
Yeah, it's so funny that sometimes you can have an encounter with art and get away scot-free, and other times. And I think in Terrifier 3, in the scene in the bar with Santa and the other, I think a lot of that they got hours to just play around with the scene and just improv stuff. So there is definitely a lot of improv with Art the Clown in around the scripted stuff.
Yeah. But if you look at those practical effects, I think that's also what takes it out of the realm of torture porn. So when you're seeing this girl get sawed in half, or when you're seeing bedroom scene in the second film.
Oh, the infamous bedroom scene.
The infamous bedroom scene.
Oh,
it's, you're looking at animatronics and dummies and puppets and various other things.
And I think, I think with the bedroom scene, the fact that the girl at the end of that whole ordeal that she goes through, because it does look very B grade, and it does look it looks good, like it looks great, but it doesn't look lifelike in a way. So there is that part of your brain going, okay, this isn't real.
Yes.
And that's important.
It's strangely comical. I know there was a lot of complaint. Oh, there's no way she'd be alive at the end of all that. Well, no, of course not. That's the point. You know, the whole ridiculous nature of what you're seeing here is the point of the film, and I think that takes it out of that torture porn genre.
It goes so over the top that it becomes unbelievable.
Yes, and whereas torture porn is meant to draw you in and make you feel whatever it is meant to make, whatever you feel when you watch it.
Yes.
This is meant to go,
Yeah, and I think that with the Saw franchise we were talking about before, in the later, like the first movie is two guys locked in a room with a dead body. Simple. By the time you get to like Saw, I think it's Saw 6, when there's a whole merry-go-round system with shotguns set up that stop randomly or something. It's been ages since I've seen it. But it gets to the point of going, there is no way one guy could have built this and set this whole thing up. So then taking your mind out of, okay, there's no way this could actually have happened, puts your mindset in, okay, that means I can enjoy it. And I think, with the Terrifier films, they have to straddle that line between what is realistic and what is over the top. Because if it's too realistic, then the audience squirms. But if it is over the top, then you can kind of put your mindset into, okay, I can enjoy this.
I think it makes that decision easier for the audience as well, because you're still going to find people who will get particularly I know Richie, our longtime listener and friend, made it to the girl being sawed in half, and he sent me a message and he said, you know what? I'm out.
Yep.
I think that's fair enough, because it gets to a certain point where you know it's not for you.
Yes. And there is no shame in tapping out on some of these things.
Not at all. And for someone like me, I don't tend to go with the torture porn. I don't tend to go with the over-the-top violence and gore. I like my slasher films, and I don't mind what Wes Craven does with his slasher films and what have you. But I think, filmmakers like John Carpenter, where a lot of it is more implied and what have you, and even Spielberg with Jaws and things like that.
Well, look at the first Halloween movie, actually. When I finally watched that, very few kills actually happen, like, explicitly on screen for that first Halloween.
And the ones that do happen on screen are very quick after a lot of build-up. So it's what was it?
Which I think was
Mike Flanagan. Sorry?
Which I think was probably a limitation of the budget they had.
Possibly. They had about $300,000 to work with.
Yeah, it was a very small budget, but it was very effective. It worked very effectively in the end.
There's a story that, because it's set at Halloween, but they filmed it in, I think it was springtime. John Carpenter had to send one of his mates out to the hardware store to buy some paint, and they actually got up and painted leaves on the street to look brown, because they were all green with the summer or the spring lights. Yeah. But when you see, I think it was Mike Flanagan who said that you've got to earn certain things, and that's what makes certain horror so effective. And so John Carpenter, he earns his kills. And I think Wes Craven does too. There's very few kills in the original Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, even the first couple of Scream films. There's very few kills that aren't earned. And so you don't mind the outcome of those kills, I guess. Sometimes with torture porn, it does feel like they're just carving people up.
Yeah. I think we talked about this with the first Winnie the Pooh horror, that none of the kills felt earned. And that's why we didn't feel anything about it.
Yeah, the only kill that I remember going, okay, cool, was the one in the pool where
with I think it was Piglet.
What he did even.
I think it was the sledgehammer.
Yeah, it might have been. She got to the edge of the pool and he did her in with the sledgehammer, I think. It was the only one that felt, okay.
Yep, cool.
Yeah. And also, we should add the Terrifier films. No unearned boobs.
Yes. I don't think... the third one does have boobs, but it's not explicit. Never explicit boobs.
I think the first one where the girl is strung up naked before he cuts her in half.
Yeah,
but I kind of see the point of that.
That felt in this, it sounds so strange to say that felt earned.
It does, especially with what happened to her.
Yeah. But if you're wondering, if you haven't, go back and listen to our Winnie the Pooh horror film review, because there is one scene in there where a woman is just suddenly topless.
Yeah,
And we both had the same reaction. It was just like, that was pointless. There was no reason for that at all.
Yeah, and there were a few other scenes where you could have, if you wanted a topless woman in it.
Oh, well, there was one scene
scenes.
There was one scene that was begging for a topless moment, and it never happened.
And it never happened. So
no.
And if you are getting squeamish about some of this stuff, I will say I have watched an interview with the actress who was strung up like that. She had an absolute blast filming it. It was fun, a great night. She said the worst part of it was filmed in the middle of winter and she was nude.
Yeah,
and that was a bit hard for her.
Yep.
But otherwise, she had a blast filming that scene. So
and I think she even had to. I might be misremembering, but she had to actually talk to David Howard Thornton because he was avoiding eye contact with her for ages during that scene because he couldn't look.
Yeah. The actor does occasionally feel like, a bit squeamish about what he's doing.
Which, I mean, if he didn't, I'd be a little bit more. I imagine him reading the scripts and being like, really? Really? I was actually, it was almost a relief at some point to read that there was the one scene in Terrifier 3 that actually made him nearly vomit.
I can understand that scene.
Yeah, that's a rough scene.
It's just, like, there are things that you accept in horror films and things that are too much. And even for me, I've watched a lot of horror films. I watch that and I go, ah.
Yeah, in the Terrifier franchise, there are only two scenes that really made me question it. One was the scene in Terrifier 3 with the rats.
Yes.
And the bedroom scene in Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
It was more, and you know it, when he came back.
Hey, but he looks so happy.
He does. He
was so excited about the new inclusions.
It's like he left and he saw the bleach and salt, then went, I've got a great idea.
Yep. He's an ideas man, is Art.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those scenes where I awkwardly laughed because Art is enjoying the moment so much. I awkwardly laughed, and in the back of my mind I went, oh, that, even for me, and I can deal with a lot, even for me, that felt like a little bit too far.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that saves it is her skin peels off far too easily to be real.
And is that getting back to what we're talking about, that it was so over the top that it becomes unrealistic?
I think so. A human wrist bone shouldn't break, or whatever it was, that forearm shouldn't break and come out of the skin that easy. I think I messaged you at one point and said these people's heads pop off with ridiculous ease.
Yes,
in this movie,
they really do.
You are reminded occasionally of what you are watching.
Yeah.
But the first film, as we said, it does follow that standard horror slasher trope of he's trying to kill them and they're trying to get away, and in the end you have your final girl who overcomes and kills the bad guy and wins the day, sort of. She's horribly disfigured in the meantime, but she does survive. The second one takes it to much more of a supernatural place where we find out that Art is maybe not quite human.
No, not anymore. Because it was interesting.
He is in the first film.
Yes. And the third one makes it clear that, he was human right up until he passed. And then I think, and spoilers again, we warned you, but I think it was that his body was inhabited by a demon.
Yeah.
So essentially, because he's such an evil dude, the demons need an evil person to possess, to enter our world.
How does, I've always kind of wondered though, how does Vicky tie into that? Because she clearly has that connection with him as well.
Well, I think through her trauma, she becomes it's almost like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, I think. Where through her trauma, she becomes almost obsessed with Art. Which then...
And I suppose that leaves her open to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember you messaging because early on in the third one, I believe she's still human at this point, but she commits suicide after Art regains his body.
Mm.
And then you said like, oh, that was a bit, oh, the end of Vicky, that was it. And I'm like, just wait. Just wait.
Yeah, I knew being a Terrifier film, maybe that wouldn't be the end of Vicky,
I thought the
and it
same thing
wasn't.
when I watched it. I thought, oh, no, she's done. But then actually, there
Mm.
actually still is an in-universe reason for doing that.
Mm. Yeah. And we find that out as the film goes on. But then there's also a connection between Art and the character of Sienna, who is the
Yes.
final girl in Terrifier 2
Yeah.
and 3, I suppose.
Yeah, and and I messaged you when I first watched Terrifier 3. I said, I love the fact that the director in this horrific horror film, between the two films, is taking time out to develop character.
He did. He really did.
There are just nice dinner scenes where she is dealing with her trauma. And some films do touch on that, but it takes the time, at least I thought, it takes the time to let those scenes breathe and let you feel what she's going through.
Yeah, it does. It lets you really empathize with the character of Sienna because she goes through a lot in that second film.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she dies herself and is brought back by some kind of entity.
Yes, because it's revealed that when this kind of emissary of hell is born, like heaven sends someone to counteract it.
And she is that someone.
Yeah, and as long as she's alive, Art is vulnerable.
Yeah. And you don't get a lot of that.
It's a classic good versus evil trope.
It is. Yeah. And Art completely destroys her family and friends, like quite literally destroys them in the second film in very Terrifier ways, shall we say. So she goes through a lot, and, you know, her brother is barely alive by the end of the second film as well, I think. And so, but having that kind of play off each other, and you actually get to see a development of Sienna through the second film, how she grows from being someone who's lost her dad and, you know, is struggling with that through to someone who now has to kind of take on this mantle, if you will, of taking down Art. And Art seems to have grown a little bit too. I feel like he's happier in the second film.
Yeah, he's having fun.
Yeah, and I think that really comes across. Like there's a natural joy that Art brings to every scene that he's in, and I know how that sounds when he does the things he does to the people in those scenes. But you just can't help but laugh at him and feel like, this guy's a little bit charming.
Yeah.
And
I think
a little bit charismatic.
And that's the what's the word? Not hypocrisy. It's not hypocrisy. What's that word? The contradiction between Art as a clown and then what he does.
Yeah. And he's again, it's just I got to lay it all at the feet of David Howard Thornton. His performance, his physical performance is just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't look at this guy and go, I want to see more of him on screen, but you can't help yourself. Every time he's there, the screen lights up a little bit.
Yeah. He's fantastic. And I think he loves the role.
Yeah. And that comes, I think, from being, he'd done a lot of physical theater in his time as well. And so he had a lot of control on his body, over his body and his expressions and things like that.
Which he's so expressive considering he's got, I think, full face prosthetic on. Yeah.
So a lot of the acting is just his mouth and his eyes, which I know sounds odd, but somehow he makes that work.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, what we're talking about is, with that second and to the third film, I was surprised at how much lore they kind of added. Because they didn't need to.
Without having over-exposition as well, in some ways. Like, there's a bit of exposition in the third film, but not a lot in the second one.
No, the second one is really a lot just implied. The third one really just solidified, like, okay, this is what happened in the third one. This is why.
Yeah.
it happened.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think out of the three, and I think I told you, out of the three, I actually enjoyed the second one, I think, the most.
Same.
I did feel sometimes like I get the criticism that it's a little bit long. Like I think it's 2.5 hours,
Mm.
which is a lot for that type of movie. That's a lot to deal with.
A lot of that is Sienna and her, I guess, growth,
Yeah,
if
it's
you will.
surprising how much of that is actually just character and plot.
Mm. I'd like to give a shout out to Lauren Laverne as well. Like, sorry, not Laverne, Lavera as well. Her acting, particularly in the third one, which we'll go into,
Mm.
is actually outstanding. Like in a horror film, you think low budget, unknown actors, but she's very good at what she does.
I'll say a lot of the performances across the board in these movies are really good.
Mm.
Like
Yeah,
which is something we're not used to in horror films. You just
doesn't
accept
happen often.
No, you just accept the fact that you're gonna get dodgy acting.
And sometimes that's part of the charm.
Sometimes it is part of the charm.
Like no
Um,
one in Jason X acts well.
no,
And I
but
don't
that
care.
that works for that movie so
It
much.
does.
I've got to rewatch that movie.
Mm.
I'm afraid to rewatch it though because I have memories of when I was a teenager and watched it, and I'm afraid that now as a
Still good.
mid to late 30s adult, it won't have the
Still
same
fun.
charm. Still
Still
fun.
fun.
Still fun.
The liquid nitrogen kill still is just great.
Yeah, it's not a good movie.
No, not at all. But it knew that.
Yes, absolutely. You're putting Jason in the far future on a spaceship. What? You can't take that seriously.
And inhabiting him with nanobots.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh well. So I guess Terrifier 3, the new one, kind of got a bit of a reputation online for that opening scene.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying the first 10 minutes of this film are so brutal. And yes, it is. I think more for the implications of it.
The implication.
The implication. Like gore-wise, I think it was pretty standard for what you come to expect in a Terrifier movie.
Even so, it wasn't like, I mean, for one thing, again, spoilers for the first 10 minutes, if you will.
Yep.
A family is slaughtered, but you don't see the kids get slaughtered.
No.
You hear the brother.
Oh yeah, he's gone.
You don't see, well, you see the aftermath, I suppose. But
Yeah.
you don't see the actual physical slaughter itself. And even the father's killing was mostly in dark and shadow
Yes.
until the last couple of swings of the axe.
I think the mother's
You see in all its glory.
yeah, but even that's pretty tame. That was just, I think, just an axe to the head.
He did take off her arm.
Oh, that's right.
First.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, for a Terrifier movie, that's pretty standard. A
He
standard
does
kill.
like to dismember.
Yeah. He likes to take his time, unfortunately, for his victims.
But yeah, I think you're right. More about the implication, because he finds the little girl in the cupboard at the end, and then there's just a shot of the axe, and then it cuts away, and it's
heavily implied that
I've seen worse in more standard horror films.
Yes, I think the implication that they were willing to go there with the kids, because oftentimes the kids will survive situations like that. But again, it's the director telling you, like, this is the type of movie you're about to watch. Be prepared.
Yeah. And of course, there was that scene that just made me laugh out loud near the start of the film.
With the cop's head.
So at the end of the second film, Art has his head removed by Sienna. She chops it off.
Yep.
At the start of the third film, the corpse is still alive, of course.
The headless corpse, yep.
And a cop comes in and finds the headless corpse and then is killed by the headless corpse. And the next time we see Art is getting onto a train with the cop's head in place of his own because he doesn't have one. And I just couldn't help but laugh at that.
It was.
It was so
I
ridiculous.
think it. I'm hoping it was intended to be ridiculous because it was.
It has to have been, yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
that was really funny.
yep.
Which coming
And
only minutes after seeing a family get slaughtered just felt a little wrong.
it did. And then he goes and breaks out Vicky from the insane asylum, which, for all you WWE fans out there, the security guard that they tear apart is played by Chris Jericho.
I thought I recognized him. I couldn't place him.
Yep, played by Chris Jericho. And he is deliciously torn apart piece by piece. With
There
no
are some
weapons.
there are some good kills in the third one.
There are some good kills. I did enjoy that. I didn't enjoy the third film as much, though.
No, it's still
No.
good. Like I would still rate it very highly.
Mm.
I think
It is.
the issue for me is, and it was a criticism of the second one, but the issue for me is the third one felt rushed.
Mm.
And that is because I read some of the trivia for the movie, and that is because the directive the studio gave him is it had to come in at 2 hours.
Yeah.
Couldn't go longer. So on shooting days, he was cutting a lot of the script because he knew that we could have this scene, but it won't get in the movie because it'll make the movie too long. So he was just cutting pages of script out on the day.
That makes sense.
I think it suffered for it because the movie moves along very quickly.
It does.
But like I said, it still gives those moments for character development, which I really do appreciate. I would rather have fewer kills, like fewer more impactful kills, and have character development than suffer plot and character development for more kills, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. And they do enhance the characters a lot. I think you learn a lot more about Sienna. And like you said, those moments of showing her PTSD were strangely realistic, I think, particularly for a horror movie of this nature. Now, some horror films are great at showing PTSD from having survived the first one and survivor's guilt and things like that as well, which she very clearly has.
Yep.
But I think the way they showed it, particularly in the dinner scene where she's seeing her dead friend, was really, really impactful for the kind of movie it is.
Yeah, I felt the same. Like, I was watching like, oh shit, that sucks.
And Lauren Lavera acted the shit out of that scene. She was amazing. Like, just nailed it completely. So I think she stepped up. Like, she was good in the second one. I think her acting takes it to another level in the third one.
Yeah, and a lot of the family dynamics of like, she's just insane or, she's too much, as well as the quote unquote like celebrity status she now has because she survived, which I think is touched on in other films, like I think the Scream franchise with Sydney. That's touched on quite a bit.
They do it quite well, yeah.
Especially because in universe they made the Stab movies, which I love the fact that Scream has an in-universe Scream movie.
Yeah. I like the fact that Sydney in the first film is already somewhat of an unwilling celebrity because of what happened to her mother before the film takes place. So that was really, she's already suffering from PTSD and survivor's guilt and what have you in that first film.
Yeah, and then I think we get to the end of, I think it's Scream. Is it Scream 4? Is she in Scream 5? No, she's not in Scream 5.
She's in Scream 5. She's not in Scream 6, I believe.
It gets to the point, I just remember laughing at the scene when her and Gail are outside the house and someone comes out and they're pretending to be injured and they just both look at each other like, yep, it's a trap.
Yeah.
Like, we've been through this 4 or 5 times by now. We know the tropes.
Yep.
Anyway.
It was well done. But yeah, the third film.
We'll have to talk about the Scream films at some point. I don't think you've seen them all yet.
I haven't seen 6 yet.
All right, well.
And 7 hasn't come out yet, has it?
5, 6. I don't think 7's come out yet.
No.
We'll have to talk about the Scream films because they are classics.
I was disappointed in Scream 5. Some great things, but I don't know if it's a spoiler now, but the death of Dewey. Talk about unearned death scenes. That was an unearned death scene.
I think that was Scream 6. Or was that Scream 5?
5. It
They
was
all
5.
kind of blend together
Given what
after
he's
a while.
been through and what he did and how he got to still be alive, that scene where he's
Mm,
killed just does not play right for me.
fair enough. I think it was in Scream 6 where Gail did the one thing everyone had been begging for everyone to do, and she hung up the phone on the killer.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah, literally mid-sentence. Just hung up on them.
Good. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, Drew Barrymore should have done that in the first couple of minutes of the first. It wouldn't have solved anything, but you know.
No.
But yeah, the
Anyway.
third Terrifier film, I do have complaints a little bit about art.
Mm,
Um, again, I love David Howard Thornton's performance, but I felt like some of the mannerisms and even some of the joy he was showing felt a little pushed,
yep.
a little bit like they were trying too hard to make it funny rather than just allowing his natural kind of charisma, I guess, to bring out the humor. I think particularly in that first kill scene, where the mother's finding all the body parts of the family members, and he's actively mocking her, which is not out of Art's.
His
You know,
MO.
it's not. I
Yeah.
get that, but at the
Yeah.
same time, it's like a little bit like I don't know. I feel like you're trying too hard to make him
Mm.
not evil so much as just, if I can say the word, you're just trying to make him a bit of a cunt here. Really, like it felt like he was pushing it to get us to feel that way as
Yeah.
opposed to him just having fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I felt
I
like
don't know.
that came through a couple of times in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think I felt that the same as you did.
Mm.
I still really enjoyed his performance. I think my issues with it is it just felt too quick. Like, especially, I think that really plays, especially at the third act after the shower scene,
Mm.
and it just suddenly cuts to the house, and he has the body strung up, and they're all there already.
Yeah, where did he get the time to do that?
Yeah, and the fact that, and spoilers again, just warning again, the fact that her brother was killed off screen.
That seems odd for a
That
Terrifier movie.
that seemed very odd to me and felt out of place. Like, I
I mean,
thought that it would be a twist that he was actually still alive at the end, but apparently not.
I kind of got the feeling that when they when the dad pulls up at the dorm
Mm,
room, that we're like, okay, bad times are happening for Jonathan.
mm.
Um,
But the fact that and
failed
for a
skull
Terrifier movie that shows everything,
to
they
not
didn't
show
show it.
that. But I guess they were setting us up for the whole bait and switch with
Mm,
Gabby and Jonathan and the skull.
yeah. Which, I
Um,
don't know. For me, I never actually believed that was her.
no,
That was just me.
it didn't seem in line with the film.
Mm. See,
So I guess
I think that third act fell a little flat for me.
fair enough.
Mm.
It was, especially I guess because the Vicky character kind of took over the heavy lifting in that third
Yeah.
act too. The shower scene
Mm.
I found a bit odd.
Oh, really?
I did like for the audience, it's set up that this couple is very much going to have sex. Um, the girl is a podcaster who's trying to get an interview with Jonathan, the brother, but also with Deanna, and she's trying to use Jonathan's college roommate to set all that up. She's kind of using him, and she then very heavily implies that if he manages to get her time with Jonathan, she'll have sex with him. To which, of course, this young horny college boy says, "Well, that's a no-brainer," and so of course they have sex. I guess my surprise was, why would they leave the comfort of the dorm room that they're already in with his bed right there to go into the shower to have sex in a very public college shared shower situation.
That is not the criticism I thought you would have for that scene.
Oh, the actual sex scene itself is fine. Like,
No,
it's a horror film.
I didn't expect you to be like, why would they just change location?
It seems
You're pulling
to me.
that. Okay, look, no judgment. Thought didn't even cross my mind.
I expected the sex scene to a degree. I mean, it's a Terrifier film, and they're surprisingly low on sex scenes.
Actually, yeah, that's very true.
And so there's no horror movie trope here of, if you drink, do drugs, have sex, you die. Anyone who crosses Art's path is purely up to his whim if you live or die.
And Terrifier 3 really does show that even kids aren't immune.
Very much.
The bomb at the Santa.
Yep.
You don't see it, which I think for kids you have to heavily imply things.
Yeah.
But they don't go into as much detail as they would with an adult kill.
Yeah. And they were good about that. I know John Carpenter got in trouble for showing quite at the time, graphic kill of a child in Assault on Precinct 13. We wouldn't think twice about it now, but he actually was told, if you leave this scene in the film, we're going to rate it X. And I think it was another filmmaker said to him, cut the scene, show the raters, and then put the scene back in for release, which he did.
Yep.
So, there are ways around it. But it was really good, I think, that they more implied. They did show a bit of the aftermath of the boy who was holding the box. But they didn't show how he got to that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. The sex scene, it's a horror movie. There's going to be sex scenes occasionally. There's going to be naked people. That's fine. I just didn't quite get all the sudden scene change for that.
Okay, fair enough.
Appreciate.
That just didn't even cross my mind that's where you were about to go with that.
Fair enough. I did appreciate that Art gave her wish and showed her what the eyes of a killer look like.
That was a really nice moment. I mean, nice, not nice moment, but you know what I mean.
It shows he listens.
Yeah, I loved when she was like almost fangirling about it, and he was like, "Aw."
But then she's like, "I don't want to fuck him," and he was like, "Oh."
Yeah, at that moment, she sealed her fate.
Yeah, like seriously.
I almost felt like if she didn't say that, he would have let her live.
He may have. And just showed her what it's like by killing the roommate was always destined to die, I think. But
yeah.
And so that, I guess, brings us to the final third of the film, which I think was less about Art and more about the demon inside Vicky.
Yes.
In a way.
Well, it seems like the goal of these demons is that if they can possess I can't remember what the word they used for, the one that fights against them. It's like when that's it, they win.
Yeah.
Which they obviously have to do by breaking her mentally and physically. Until
she agrees. For some reason, she has to agree to it.
Yeah. Must be. I think that's a pretty. I know in demonology and stuff, I think there is a section in demonology that says to be possessed, you have to allow a demon in.
I know in Supernatural, I think demons just carte blanche on whoever they want, but angels you have to agree to be inhabited by.
It might just be a movie trope that I'm misremembering from an exorcism movie or something.
I think it is you have to be invited into the life in some way, but I'm not sure if you have to be necessarily invited into the body. I don't know. I don't really study demonology, so
no. Well, anyway.
Yeah, it's a moot point.
The point is they're trying to possess Sienna.
Yes. And she's very strong mentally and does not allow them to possess her. And she once again kills the bad guys. Well,
yes, but not. She kills Vicky.
Yep.
Or the demon inhabiting Vicky. I think Vicky's long gone by now. Beats up Art, which was very satisfying to see.
It was, yeah.
Yep.
Cut his throat as well.
Yep. He did not like that at all. He was not happy.
He was a little bit upset by that.
But also not at a. There was loss for her because her cousin, was it?
Yeah, I think so. It's her
Her cousin,
mother's sister's family that
yep.
she's with.
Um, fell into, I guess, hell because Vicky's
Yeah.
blood opens a portal to, I'm guessing hell, and her cousin falls into it.
Yep.
And no resolution. We're setting up for Terrifier 4.
Very much set up for what I understand will be the final Terrifier film.
I know it was the interview I listened to with David said that the director was trying to decide whether or not he'd wrap it up in 4 or 5 movies. See, he said he thought he had enough material for 5 movies.
No.
But we'll just see. But I think Terrifier 3, I think, made so much money. I think a 4th one is almost guaranteed.
Well, the way it ends, yeah, I think we have to, because she says, "I will find you."
Yep.
So once again, Sienna survives.
Yep.
Spoilers,
She's still the
I
final
guess.
girl.
Art survives also.
Yep.
In fact, he gets up to some more implied shenanigans at the end.
And ends the movie almost the same way he began, taking public transport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
On a bus this time.
Yeah. With that poor woman.
He's all by himself now. He has no demon companion. So I guess my question to you, do you think he's human again?
No.
No?
No, he's definitely not human. There's no way he could have survived any of that stuff that happened to him at the end.
Well, that all kind of happens pre-win, if that makes sense.
True. But no, I took that out of it that he still wasn't human. He was just
Still not human?
Weakened.
Possibly.
Well, we'll wait for the 4th one. Then he gets on the bus. So I guess predictions for the 4th movie, like, are they going to hell?
Ooh, Jason style.
Yeah. Like, is she actually going to go to hell to rescue her?
I would be disappointed if they didn't, I think. I think we're set up for this.
Where else can you take it from here now?
Yeah. But then how does Art play into that? He seems to have decided to go on his merry way. He very easily could have killed Deanna at the end there where she's focusing on trying to save Vicky, but he runs away instead. Which is a little bit...
I actually think Art is scared of her. Like, he doesn't show it, but especially with what happened in the second one.
She
I
can
think
and has killed him, yeah.
Yeah, I actually think he's a little bit scared of her. He's just not going to show it.
And rightly so, perhaps. Yeah, if you can be killed by this person, I would be a little bit wary of them as well.
Yeah.
Especially if they're actively trying to kill you.
Yeah, and that's not something Art's used to. He's not used to anyone actively up against him.
And the actress also brings a wealth of martial arts backgrounds and stuff too.
Oh,
so a lot
she?
of the stuff that the actress herself has been doing it since she could walk pretty much.
Oh, okay, cool. I did not know that.
So it's not just, but she's suddenly bestowed with these gifts or what have you. This actress really does embody the part.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, are you looking forward to Terrifier 4?
Looking forward to it is such an odd way to phrase it with these films, isn't it?
It is.
Like, I came out of the second one, I'm like, I really enjoyed that. What the fuck is wrong with me? You know? But yeah, I for a franchise that started as a simple, slasher dump and run kind of movie to what it's become, I am really hooked. I want to know how they end this universe.
To come from humble beginnings to what was, I think, one of the biggest movies this Halloween season. Especially for one as violent as it is.
Like, even after the third or second Hostel movie, people started going, that's enough. And Saw, I think once it got to about 4 or 5, people started, as you said, the whole Jigsaw reasoning had been polluted and what have you, and people were going, that's enough.
Yeah.
People want to see these movies.
I put that down to Art the Clown. He's a very memorable
Mm.
guy, and the performance is great. And it's a weird word, but the love that seems to go into making these movies. There is a passion that these people have for this franchise, and I think that shines through.
Yeah, every step of the way, they clearly love what they are doing.
Yeah,
And not in the tearing people apart way, but just making these movies.
and you and I have seen enough horror movies to know that you can tell when a director, an actor, writer does not care.
Yeah. Or even when it just like another part of it is they've kept the core unit together as well through all
Yeah.
three films.
Mm.
So I know that there was a lot more money involved in the third movie, and Damien Leone went from saying from having to look after 4 or 5 people doing literally everything to having actual, teams, costume departments, design departments, this department, that department. But the core unit, he still has creative control. He still wrote it. He still directed it. The actors still had their essence there and the ability to bring themselves into the characters and really embody those characters, that core unit. And you don't get that in horror films.
No.
One of the biggest complaints about the Halloween franchise is that Michael Myers is never as scary as he is in the first film.
Mm.
And a lot of that comes down to the way, like Nick Castle was just a friend of John Carpenter's, who they just needed someone to wear the mask. So they gave him the mask and said, go and do these scenes, go and walk. And it's like every actor after that tried to copy that without being able to do it because they're not Nick Castle.
Mm.
And so I think if you had all of a sudden a change and someone other than David Howard Thornton played Art in the fourth film, it just wouldn't work because they'd be trying to be David Howard Thornton.
Yeah, and and like I said, it sounds so silly. Like you would think that anyone could just put on the mask and be Michael Myers.
You
But
would
no,
think.
there's a presence about it.
Yeah, there is.
And even in the rebooted, not rebooted, but the sequel trilogy we got, as questionable as 2 of the 3 out of those quality was, the 2018 Halloween I'll maintain was really great.
Nick Castle once again wears the mask in a number of scenes.
Yeah, and it shows.
Yeah, it shows.
The perfect example out, and I told you about this, was In a Violent Nature, where it is just a guy in a mask walking through the woods, but they had to shut down. They filmed a bunch of it, then they had to shut down for, I think it was the writer's strike or COVID or something like that. And the original actor couldn't reprise his role. So the director just thought, oh, we'll put someone else in the mask and keep going. And he very quickly was like, no, you can tell it's a different person.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can, even though it's just someone in a mask, it's a certain presence, how they walk, how they just stand, how they open a door will be different between each actor.
And you also get that in the reboot Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a similar storyline, of course. It's a reboot of the first movie. And there's nothing wrong with the movie. Like the actress, I can't remember the main actress. I know Hayden Panettiere. I forget how to pronounce her last name.
I haven't seen the reboot, unfortunately.
She's fine. She's really good in it. I think it's Jackie Earle Haley plays Freddy in the reboot. And he's fine. He's fine. But he's not Robert Englund.
Yeah.
He's just not. And there's something about Robert Englund that made Freddy work. And I think that's what makes these films work. That crew has maintained the core essence of these films all the way through.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think you'll find that horror people will work with the same people. They're a very close-knit community.
Yeah.
And like who did you say before, the special effects guy that came on in the second one?
Tom Savini.
That's him. Yeah, he is renowned. I think he's a legend in the special effects industry. So
he did a number of the Friday the 13th films.
Yeah. So to get him on board is a huge win.
Yep.
But you also
I-
know that he's going to actually care about it. Like, it can
Yeah.
be the most gruesome kill you can think of, but he's going to put the effort into it to make it look good.
Yes, he loves what he does.
Mm.
He's also, I don't know if he actually did any of the practical effects, but he's in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
If you don't know who I'm talking about, if the audience doesn't know who we're talking about, he is he's not part of the original group with George Clooney. He's one of the people in the bar who is slowly turned into a vampire. He's also on an episode of The Simpsons where comic book guy hosts Tom Savini, and he famously has a heart attack and Bart and Milhouse take over running the comic book store. He loves what he does, and he's very talented at it. So I think that really does take that third movie to a next level with its practical effects.
Yeah, it definitely shows. I was just seeing, I think I told you too, Robert Englund just prompted me that he's actually in the next Puniverse movie. He's in Pinocchio Unstrung, which is coming out next year. It hasn't been announced what role he's playing, but yeah, Robert Englund is in that movie.
I don't think it matters what role he's playing. He'll just bring some weight to it.
He's not Geppetto. Someone else is playing Geppetto.
It was a perfect part for him.
I know. Yeah, so that's just, sorry, you just randomly sprung because we had talked about those movies before, and
Who was it?
yeah,
Who was in the second Pooh movie? I remember messaging you and saying they've got this actual actor in this movie.
this actual actor that.
Yeah, like a real legitimate actor.
Hold on, I'll look it up. Yeah, well, for those of us following along, next year we've got in the Puniverse movie, which is actually called the Twisted Childhood universe, but Puniverse sounds so much better.
Puniverse will forever be the real name for it.
Yeah, next year, January 13, actually very soon, we've got Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare.
I wonder if they will go down the route of Peter Pan being the real villain who murders Lost Boys.
Maybe. But surprisingly, the guy that played Christopher Robin in the second Winnie the Pooh movie is writing and directing that one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so okay. So next year we've got we've got 4 movies in the Puniverse series coming out next year. Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare, Bambi the Reckoning, Pinocchio Unstrung, and Puniverse Monsters Assemble.
Monsters Assemble. I am kind of looking forward to that.
Which, yeah. We are definitely talking about those movies when they come out. However bad or good they are.
Well, if they take a little bit of inspiration from the second Simon Callow. That's
him. Yeah, because you messaged me and went, "Oh my god, like this guy."
It's like that scene. If you've seen Wayne's World 2,
I haven't.
Wayne is running off to find his love, who has been stolen by Christopher Walken.
Of course.
And he's going to find her, and he stops at a service station to ask for directions. And the person in the service station is a horrible actor. And so Wayne says, "Look, I know this is just a bit part, but could we at least get a good actor?" And so they pull him out and replace him with Charlton Heston, who, of course, makes Wayne cry with his backstory and et cetera. It just having Simon Callow in Pooh 2 kind of reminded me of that.
Which, yeah, go back and listen to that episode because, yeah, first one horrible, second one surprisingly good.
I mean, it's not Oscar worthy.
Oh God, no, not in the slightest. But still, it was an enjoyable time.
And the kills felt earned.
Yep.
Yeah.
No unearned nudity.
Was there even any nudity?
There was no nudity.
I didn't think
so. Which means they realised that we don't need nudity in this.
No.
They actually got a Christopher Robin that could act, as opposed to the first movie.
It was horrible in that first movie, wasn't he?
Oh my God, he was so bad. No
But,
offense to the guy that did it, but yeah.
kudos to them in the second movie for going, yes, we know the first one was a pile of shit, so we're going to try and explain that away. And they did in a fairly decent way.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Which, again, we talked about Terrifier did the same thing.
So
Yep.
we both agree number 2 is probably the better
Yeah.
of the trilogy. But you've got to admit, for a film that came from humble beginnings 10 years ago, that people on Reddit, they love it or they hate it. It had a very small following
Mm,
to what I think may have been the biggest horror release of 2024.
absolutely.
How does that happen, Brayton?
I don't know. Or luck.
Like Halloween, when it came out, yes, it was made on a tiny budget, but when it hit cinemas, it went nuts and it became a massive
Mm,
hit. Jaws was the same for Steven
yep.
Spielberg. All those horror franchises, that first film may have been a sleeper, but when it hit the cinemas, it exploded.
Mm.
Usually,
I don't know. Terrifier 1 kind of flew under the radar for me.
yeah.
As I said, it wasn't until Terrifier 2, I think, even came out on like digital to buy, did people actually finally start taking notice of it and being like, hey, actually, this second one is good.
Mm.
And of course, I think it obviously did well enough to get a third one.
Mm.
But I think I said right at the start, the fact it got a second one is almost a miracle. And the fact that they gave it a bigger budget and let him just do whatever he wanted kind of proved that actually there is some talented filmmaking behind this. But yeah, it was a sleeper hit until it just exploded.
The only franchise I think that comes close like that is the El Mariachi franchise.
Ah, yes. Desperado and...
Yeah, so they made the first film. It was called El Mariachi. Everyone spoke Spanish. Robert Rodriguez made it with $8,000 that he financed by doing medical tests at his university.
Yep.
And no one watched it when it first came out. No one cared. But somehow it got a sequel / reboot. So the Desperado film is kind of a sequel, kind of a reboot. And they got Antonio Banderas, who was an up-and-coming star at the time. And I think $20 million for a budget?
Which is reasonably low.
Low at that time. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
low. It was never meant to be a big film, but then it exploded. And then 12 years later or so, 10 years later, we got Once Upon a Time in Mexico, which has mixed reactions.
I've heard that.
I
I have not... Full disclosure, I've not seen any of these movies.
They're great. I do recommend them. They're fun. They're very fun. But I do remember watching the director's commentary for Desperado. And when I can't remember if it was Paramount or whoever it was, financed it, the big cinema logo came over at the front of the film, and Robert Rodriguez said, that one shot there cost more than the entire first film. It happens, but it's just so rare. And for a horror film,
it's rare for a horror film. Usually these sequels often get worse and worse until you get to just straight to what we used to call straight to video releases that no one watched, no one cared about.
Yeah. And look, the first movie's not great. Objectively, there's not a lot of movie there.
No.
I think what makes it great is art. I don't think that movie exists without him. And he's not the first actor, by the way, to play art either.
No, because this all started in All Hallows Eve, which was an anthology, which I have not seen. I really should watch it.
They're all linked by Art the Clown, I understand. There's like 3 different stories or something.
Yeah,
They're
which
all
was
linked through Art the Clown.
not David Howard Thornton in those
No,
movies.
no. And I did watch an interview with the original bloke, who I believe was just a friend of Damien Leone's, who did the part for him. And they asked him, does he feel bitter or anything about, where it's gone to now and him not being part of that? No. No, he said he didn't really have any interest in taking up the mantle for the Terrifier film. And David Howard Thornton has taken Art and made him his own. And he has no regrets for not being part of it. He did what he had to do for the first one. That was all he really wanted to do. So,
and I do appreciate how, even though the first one isn't as well regarded, they haven't just ignored it.
Mm.
Like the characters from that movie still have an impact in the series now.
One would argue you couldn't have the third film without a character from the first film.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and
when I'm talking about Art there,
she's probably feeling great that she had this one little role in this little horror movie once, and now it's blown up into this whole big thing.
Yeah, surprisingly big character in the third film.
Yeah, like a main role.
Yeah, yeah. You'd never recognize her if you saw her on the street.
Which might be a good thing for her.
Maybe. Well, I mean, you'd never recognize David Howard Thornton either. He does not look anything, obviously, like Art the Clown in real.
No, not at all. Not even close.
He's such a soft-spoken bloke. He loves his games. And
yep. There's the interview with him.
Yeah,
the interview with him building Lego as they talk about it is great.
Oh, that was great, wasn't it?
It's a great interview.
Maybe that's what makes Art so fun, because I think he just purely enjoys these things. Like, he's just having so much fun building Lego.
Lego's great. Love building Lego. I love building Lego.
It is great. And I think that's what he brings that to Art. He can relate to just the fun of the job. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And Art very much loves his job.
Find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
And he doesn't.
No.
Having said that, does Art have a job? I know they asked him that on the last podcast thing, but he didn't answer it.
He doesn't, I guess he doesn't get paid to murder people.
No.
I think I'll be interested because he said in Terrifier 4, I think they're going to delve more into Art's backstory.
I feel as a super...
Yeah, but I think the one caveat he said is he refuses to make Art a sympathetic person.
Yeah, I think that would be a mistake.
Yeah, because, we hear backstories and stuff, like, even someone like Hannibal Lecter has a reasonably tragic backstory when you delve into it. Which does kind of change how you see him. Like, you can't justify what he does, but you can almost understand it.
Yes.
That would, I agree, be a mistake for Art. And I think all the crew working on it, at least from what I've seen, have been like, no, we'll delve into his backstory, but he's not going to be sympathetic. He's a horrible, horrible person.
Now, I haven't seen all of the Chucky series yet. I've seen the first 3 episodes, but even they are starting to develop a backstory for the original. I can't think of the character's name.
Chucky.
Who embodies Chucky? Charles Lee Ray?
Yeah, that's him.
I think it is.
I think that's it.
They're even starting to develop a backstory for him where it's like, well, he was beaten as a child, and that kind of thing. Which, okay, I get it when he kills, the abusive father. I'm like, But doing that for Art, yeah, I think that would take the shine off.
Yeah. But anyway.
We don't want to sympathise with him. We just want to enjoy his ride.
Exactly right. Well, I think we've rambled on long enough about this.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk for hours more. Just about horror and these movies. But if you've made it this far, hope you've enjoyed. And there's no shame in saying these movies aren't for you.
Yeah, don't feel because we love them and recommend them that if you can't get past the first couple of kills of the first movie, don't try and push your luck.
No, it doesn't get it. It doesn't get better.
There's no shame in tapping out.
But I think my final ranking would be 2, 3, 1.
Mm?
Like 2 is the best, followed by 3, then followed by 1.
Okay. There's definitely something nostalgic, I guess, about the first one, just of how simple it was. But I think the inclusion of Sienna in 2 and 3, I would agree, put them above the first one.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, that is not the watching order. You have to watch these chronologically.
Yes, otherwise you're going to be very confused.
Yeah, it's hard.
Strangely enough, you will be confused.
Which is so rare for a horror franchise. Most of these you can jump in at any point.
Pick up any Friday the 13th movie, you'll know what's going on.
Yeah.
They're the same movie, really. Just a different setting occasionally.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So I think we both recommend the whole trilogy.
Absolutely.
But again, don't feel forced to watch them.
Give the first one a try. If you can't make it past the upside down hacksaw scene, it's not for you.
You're not going to make it past the next 2 movies.
Don't even try.
No. Like Richie said, he knew his limit and tapped out, and that is absolutely fine.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, don't show it to someone on a first date unless you know them very well already.
You would have to be very sure of the person you're dating. I've known my wife for 21 years. I've known her. If she enjoys the occasional horror film, I would never show her that movie.
Yeah, same.
Any of them at all, ever.
Nope. Same with my wife. I think the most I've ever got to watch was maybe The Conjuring. And even that was like that hit her limit.
Fun fact, it's rated R in the US. I think it's MA for us. No swearing, no nudity, extraordinarily little violence.
I love
purely based on
I love that movie, The First Conjuring. Yep. I know it's completely not accurate to what actually happened, but God damn, it's a good movie.
And Patrick Wilson.
Oh yeah.
I will agree 100% with the last podcast that he is the sex in that movie.
Absolutely. The movie would be worse without him in it.
Yeah. And Vera is the brains.
Yep.
He is the sex.
Yep. I was so disappointed with that third film.
I didn't hate it.
I just did. The fourth one's coming out soon. I think it just wrapped filming.
Yeah, it's based on, I forget what case it's based on, but I'm surprised because no one cared about that case at all.
Yeah. Are they just dragging the bottom of the barrel now?
Oh, there's plenty of others that they could cover, I guess.
I don't.
But maybe by the time they got to this case, people were already going, yeah, these guys aren't real paranormal investigators. So.
Yeah, if you look at it more as just it's a fictional story based on these 2 people rather than this is what actually happened.
Just enjoy it for Patrick Wilson.
Oh yeah, any movie Patrick Wilson's in, he elevates it.
He's the only reason I stuck within the tall grass.
Yeah, that was not a good movie.
Great 2/3.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So brilliant. And then Stephen King curse.
He just doesn't know how to end his books.
Well, it wasn't his book. It was his son's. But look, spoiler alert, Owen King is not his father when it comes to writing. Joe Hill, I'll defend to the death as a great writer in his own right.
Well, isn't that why he writes under Joe Hill? He didn't want the King name associated.
Even though he looks exactly like his father.
He really does. There's no doubt that he's Stephen King's son.
Brilliant writer, though. Owen King, the best way I can describe him, and I think I may have said this to you once before, is it feels like someone doing a very good impression of a Stephen King novel.
Yeah, you said that to me.
Yeah, it's good, but it's not Stephen King, but it feels like it wants to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that was completely off topic. So
anyway, yep. All right.
Terrifier 1 through 3 we've covered.
Yep. I think not as much detail as we could have, but I think we gave a good overview.
Yeah.
All right.
And we'll have to wrap it up when the fourth one comes out.
Yes, if it's the final one. I'll be interested to see. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, I think we'll have a regular episode for you next time by the time this one comes out. We'll be
After our
into,
holiday break.
yeah, well, what is it? It's December 23rd as we record this. So by the time this comes out, it'll be after Christmas. I hope you all had a good Christmas.
Yeah.
Yep. And we will catch you, I think, in 2025 by the time the next one rolls around.
We should all be together by then.
Yes,
Should be a regular broadcast viewing
we should.
or listening.
I don't know. Either way, see you all
Either
later.
way. Bye.